the writers are drawn to television because they're allowed freedom. It's really all it's about. And I do think this may have to do with just simply a business model, economic restraints of filmmaking now. Films have to make money. They have to. So now and of course the way the genre has unfolded is, I mean, we're telling big stories that are a lot of the times are computer generated. There doesn't seem to be as much of an interest in just a sort of a human story. There has to be a bigger element, action film, whatever, for it to make sense for a studio to commit 50, 75, $100 million to the production of something, and then commit another at least $50 million to promoting it. That is a huge risk. So I think that what's happened in the cable world, which of course opened up in the 90s, Congress deregulated the way in which television was made. Television was always the province of the studios, and then it was turned into the province of the networks. Then the networks sort of disintegrated in some way and became more networks. We had more channel possibilities, so there were more places to tell stories. The smaller stories are better suited, I suppose, for the smaller screen, and there is freedom. The network television is not so. Not as unencumbered, but it's very attractive, especially for one of our more fertile, writers, to find their voice in television today. And everybody wants to work. Actors love to work, and that changed a lot. With the same decision, basically, there were a lot more opportunities for actors, but they weren't very good at first. But artists find their way to the best places to tell their stories, and I think that's what happened. You may remember the book Medium is the Message, written by Marshall McLuhan. It was very popular in the late 60s, early 70s, where it actually discussed the fact that in order to tell stories, we tend to put them in another age. I think that might explain some of what your concern is about period pieces, especially with the Brits. I get what you're talking about. For us, the world of politics, I mean, we've actually chosen a style, stylistically, that is not contemporary, but put it in a contemporary world. So I guess the medium itself is what's telling your story. If you're having a problem caring about them or identifying with them, I think that may just be a matter of time. I don't, a great villain, it's very hard to identify with a great villain. The story we're telling is about crisis, but it's really more about a human crisis. It's not really about an economic crisis. That's the story that we're telling has political crises all around it, situations that are occurring. But basically, they're all used as tools to set up this man's descent or ascent, as it may be, into his fuller human self. We meet a man who is left with a confounding question about what his life is going to mean, and he doesn't have much time left. You basically start the clock running right at the beginning of Boss, and discover what the man is made of, not necessarily what economic crisis is going on or what emotional crisis may be going on, but we discover a personal crisis that we hope the audience identifies with on some level, or at least is engaged enough by that they say to themselves, wow, I wonder what this guy is about. And so I think great art, or even just good television, is supposed to ask questions or have the audience ask questions rather than give them answers. And I hope that helps. Production, for me, was just once again, like I said, I like to tell stories. I like to find ways to tell stories, and I couldn't act in all of them. So I explored, for instance, I produced a show called Girlfriends, which is an urban comedy. And during the 80s and 90s, every year they'd have a symposium in Los Angeles where they talked about why don't we have more minorities on television. And I kept thinking, well, because you must want it that way. If you want more minorities on television, you would put them on television. So I thought, let's put our money where our mouth is, and so I spoke to some young writers from the urban community, and met this lovely gal named Mara, and she had an idea. It was, you know, a little bit reminiscent of Sex and the City, but a little more of a sort of a traditional sitcom. And they put it on television. It just seemed to me it was time to do things like that, an opportunity to sort of be responsible about having had some success, is to, you know, lift other people up, you know, bring people along for the ride. The other thing about, I produced a show called Medium. Patricia Arquette started it. That's something about my own personal experience, about life after death experience, communication between both realms. This is stuff I believe in. I don't ask anybody else to believe in it, but so I've actually started a reality show that was called The Oracles, which was about communication between people that were gifted and people who had lost and their loved ones on the other side. That show did not get picked up, but we met this really interesting woman from Arizona named Alison Dubois, who was a medium. And that sort of gave birth. She had a very interesting personal life. She was like a housewife and had 3 kids, and yet she had this wonderful gift that she lived with, and we thought, boy, that might make a television show. So it was, we had some reasonable success with that. And, I think it's been around the world, I think, hasn't it?
Yes, it's a big success.
Yeah, good. So it's, I just think, as a producer, you find somebody who wants to tell a story, I think, and you give them the equipment to do so. It just seemed like another part of what I was supposed to do. My chief criteria for selecting any story to be told is really whether it feels true. It doesn't have to be true. It just has to feel true, like you could believe it. Because life itself is full of extraordinary things that happen and behavior that doesn't seem motivated in any kind of realistic way. So I'm for the epic thing that seems true rather than something that seems so naturalistic that I get bored to tears by it. I like style. I like highlighted experience. I like extreme situations. I like people stuck in surprising situations, and so comedy certainly becomes, you know, a very easy thing to do because it's always full of surprises. If you don't surprise the audience, you don't get a laugh. Drama is a little bit more accessible, I think, to people because drama just deals with major events in people's lives as a rule. It tends to be more life and death. In terms of comedy, in order for it to be funny, it has to feel like life and death. But it can't be, because then it's not funny. Does that make any sense? But my chief interest in telling or in trying to produce or perform any character is, does it surprise me? Is it something I've done before? And do I believe it's true? Which doesn't mean I have to believe it's possible. I just have to believe it's true. And that's, I guess, the beauty of it. I mean, for instance, if you read War and Peace, really, there's nothing really natural about War and Peace, although it was written by Tolstoy, who said he was a naturalist. I don't think so. But he would disagree with me. It's a remarkable love you develop for those characters. I mean, Andre is dead. You know he's dead. And then suddenly he shows up. And I've never been happier to see a person in my life than I was to see Andre show up. So, who knows? I mean, art is a great thing. You know?